Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this South East Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 24th of July, 2024. My name is Councillor Vanessa Bell, and I'm the chairperson of this committee. Members and members of the public, by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak, and I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers, and please keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. So, Committee Clerk, may I have the apologies for absence, please?
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. We have an apology for absence from Councillor.
Thank you very much, Committee Clerk. So let's move on to the minutes. Item 3. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June, I have got the right meeting this time, found on pages 7 to 10 are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Neal. Any matters of accuracy, members? No. May we agree those by assent then, please? Yes, agreed. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. And members are also reminded that they should disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware if anything arises during the meeting. God's getting it up. So, members, any interests? Super. So let us move swiftly on then to agenda item 5, which is 00405 FULM. Land at Steeple Road and Mill Road, Mayland, and you'll find this on pages 11 to 52 of your agenda. Please note that a member's update in relation to this application has been circulated prior to the meeting. A number of updates, I think, actually. So I will hand straight over to Ms. Bradley, please, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Right. Planning permission is sought for the demolition of the existing structures on the site and the erection of 57 new dwellings, 27 of which would be affordable. The creation of new access from Steeple Road and associated landscaping, car and cycle parking, and refuse and recycling provision. As you'll be aware, yes, there are a number of updates. What I want to do is just run through them all because they are quite fresh, so just make it clear what has happened since the committee report was published. First of all, we've had a revised response from the Educational Authority. Initially, their response came through quoting the wrong housing mix, so they have provided an updated response, which is set out here. Just running through briefly, there's an early years of childcare contribution of just under £88,000, secondary education of about £425,000, school transport contribution of just over £58,000, libraries contribution of about £4,500 plus monitoring fees. There's no primary school contribution required as there are sufficient places available in Mayland. That's the update in terms of the Education Authority. In terms of the ecology consultant, we were sent some photos from a neighbour showing a slow worm and a badger purportedly in their back garden. So I did send those on to the ecology consultant for a comment. The ecology consultant came back saying they do have a holding objection on the application as it stands, and a preliminary ecological assessment was submitted with the withdrawn application last year. However, there were concerns that the site may be undervalued for hazel dormouse, and the response was accordingly that was mentioned. An updated preliminary ecological assessment should be submitted to support this application, and with further consideration for this European particular species, the hazel dormouse. However, what the ecology consultant also said is further consideration of badgers and flowworms would also be addressed in the required updated EUA as recommended in the holding objection. So that would be covered in an updated preliminary ecological assessment, which is required by the ecology advisor. That's ecology. And final update is from the lead local flood authority. They have issued a holding objection based on the following. The first point is relating to the pumping station, which is proposed on the site. They're saying new sites should consider gravity outfalls wherever possible. They're not going with that. They need clarification and justification, which hasn't been provided. And also detailed drainage layout would also be required. So what I've done here is an additional reason for refusal, which is based on the sustainable drainage system. And I'll just read it out so you're clear. Put my glasses on now to make sure I'm doing it properly. The application includes insufficient information to demonstrate that the proposal would be acceptable in terms of flood risk and how it would maximise opportunities to reduce the causes and impacts of flooding for appropriate measures such as sustainable drainage systems. The proposal is contrary to policies D2 and D5 of the approved Northern District Local Plan and the guidance within the National Plan and Policy Framework. Thank you. That's the updates dealt with.
Thank you.
So I've got an aerial photograph here. The site itself is located to the east of the village of Mayland, outside the settlement boundaries, so within the open countryside. It lies on the northern side of Steeple Road at the junction with Mill Road, Mayland, and is 1.89 hectares in size. The site was previously used as a commercial nursery and currently comprises the remains of large greenhouses and other ancillary buildings, all of which are in a dilapidated state with vegetation growing in and around them, which you'll see in the photos later in the presentation. The site boundaries are lined with existing trees and hedges. This is the site layout plan. If you all had a magnifying glass, you'd probably be able to see it really well. But what it shows is the access to the site is off Steeple Road, which runs to the south here. We've got Mill Road running up on the western side of the site. So we've got a proposed new access from Steeple Road, and then a spine road which runs pretty much north to south through the site. The dwellings would comprise a mix of 1 and 2 stories. Comprising detached and semi-detached dwellings, as well as 2 blocks of flats, each with 5 units in them. A total of 112 parking spaces are proposed, including exits and spaces. The car parking is provided both on plot and to the front and sides of plots. The site is approximately 2.5 kilometres from the centre of Mayland, which has the existing services and facilities in it. In terms of access, there is a public footpath to the north of Mill Road and also existing footways from the site itself from Steeple Road. However, given the distance, the site is not considered to be in an accessible location. Future occupants would be largely reliant on the car. Now, this has been established through an appeal decision on the site itself, where the inspector considered that the more independent residents, it was for a mix of care home and also more independent bungalows for older people. But the inspector noted that the more independent residents would be more reliant on cars. There's also an appeal decision to the north of the site at Mayflower Nurseries, which I've referred to in the tenancy report. And that site was noted, the inspector noted that the site was some distance from amenities and would be contrary to the council's spatial strategy. Right. It's also considered that proposed development would erode the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside. Furthermore, it's noted that the council does have a 5-year housing land supply. The principle of development is therefore found to be unacceptable, as it would not accord with the council's spatial strategy. Moving on to the housing tenure. As set out in the report, the applicant is proposing a total of 27 affordable homes on the site, and this equates to 47% of provisions and that's an additional 4 homes over the required policy requirement. Now, this over provision is a social benefit of the scheme, and it is supported by the Strategic Housing Service, as the properties would greatly assist in meeting the housing needs of the district. What I want to do is all the elevations and floor plans are available on the website, so I'm not going to run through them all now, but I just thought I'd pick out some examples for you of the different house types across the site. So the first one I've got here is a 2-bedroom home, and this is proposed on 10 plots across the site. This is a detached 2-storey 3-bed house, and these are this is a 3-bed bungalow. Now, these 3-bed bungalows are all located along the eastern edge of the site, where adjacent to the open countryside. And finally, these are the apartments. There are 2 blocks of apartments comprising 5 units each, 2 on the ground floor and 3 on the first floor, with amenity space for each unit provided to the rear. Just running through the illustrative street scenes. Now, the top one is taken along, you can see the top of the site here, and runs west to east on the northern part of the site. The second one down again runs west to east along this road within the site. And the bottom one is the site's frontage. So this is what you would see on entering the site. And these other 2 street scenes are taken from the western boundary, running from north to south. And then the bottom one is running from south to north along the Spine Road. So just turning now to the photographs of the site. So this is the southern side of Steeple Road, looking towards the site here. So we've got the junction with Mill Road here, Steeple Road running along, and this is the site's frontage. This is taken from the eastern side of the site again on Steeple Road, looking back towards the site in this location. So we've got there are 2 semi-detached houses located here in between the site and the settlement of Mayland. This is standing on the site on the western boundary, looking towards the eastern boundary of the site, and these are the rather dilapidated glass houses I mentioned before, and some just closer up views of those glass houses looking east. Again, this is on the western boundary looking north towards the Mayflower Nursery site to the north here. And this is looking south, so Steeple Road runs along this boundary there behind the tree. This is looking north up Mill Road from Steeple Road. So this is the site here on the right hand side of the photo. And again, just a bit further up Mill Road, so these are the houses which would be opposite the site being here. This is the view taken from the northwestern corner of the site on Mill Road, looking into the site here. I just wanted to talk about some of the layout and design issues that are raised in the report. Plot 35, which sits in the top or northwestern corner of the site, there are issues there in terms of the proximity of the site to Mill Road and also with the trees surrounding the site. This is the one that would be in this location here, so it's not clear how that plot would fit onto that site unless most of the trees were removed. There are pedestrian links to Mill Road, 3 of them from the western side of the site, and these are welcome. An example is here. In terms of parking, there are a few issues in terms of parking. One being lack of turning areas. So we've got a number of examples across the site. This is a parking space here where there's not sufficient turning space, so it would require reversing some distance. It's fairly typical of this site. There's also poor relationships with plots, plot 41 being an example where the car parking is uniquely related here and doesn't relate particularly well with the plot itself. And there's also the overall under-provision of car parking for both residents and visitors. Garden provisions, 28% of the gardens don't meet the SPD requirements that are the modern design guide requirement. And there are also concerns about, as mentioned, in terms of the proximity of quite large trees on the boundaries and the impact they would have. Turning to open space, again, some issues here in terms of visitor parking being located in areas of open space. There's a general under-provision of open space, especially given the distance from the site to the nearest open space. And this is really the only possibly usable area of open space on site, these two areas. There's also an issue with eligibility between open space and private gardens. One example being here where it's not clear where the private garden starts and the open space finishes, so to speak, which can create dead space, which is not something we'd support. And also examples here where there are windows on the side elevations facing immediately into the private open space. Public open space. Finally, in terms of layout and design, there's the increased footway width to the front of the site, to the width of the access. And again, that would be supported. However, there are issues in terms of the trees and how much would need to be cut back to create the 2 metre wide footway. Along the front of the site, there's quite an extensive area of hard surfacing and car parking, which again isn't the ideal view when you're entering the site. There's a lack of street trees and opportunity for street trees and soft landscaping along the entrance, particularly when we look at plot 55, because it was boundary wall against the footway there. There are also poor corner plots here where there's a lack of fenestration on the side elevations, so it's not a particularly good relationship with the spine road. There's no objection from County Highways in terms of the proposed vehicular access from Steeple Road. So in terms of highway safety, there's no objection to raise. However, there aren't any pedestrian footways that connect from the highway into the site, and that would be an issue at this stage. Car parking provision, as I've said, doesn't meet the minimum requirements in our vehicle parking standards. And this has the potential to result in indiscriminate parking within the site and beyond, and that's in an area where there's already a lack of on-street parking. I've talked about the location at the beginning of my presentation in terms of it's not considered to be an accessible location, and I've highlighted the layout and design issues in my report. There's also an insufficient amount of information submitted with the application to assess the landscape and visual impact of the proposal. Poor living conditions have been highlighted due to, again, the lack of garden size in some cases, and also the presence of quite high trees immediately adjacent or in the garden. In terms of protected and priority species, there is a holding objection from our ecology consultant in relation to that, and also concerns about habitat degradation on the site. There would be some economic benefits associated with the application, and that's temporary jobs during the construction process, as well as wider economic benefits in terms of residents using local facilities and services. So that would be supported in terms of economic and also social benefits. Although the applicant has indicated a willingness to enter into a Section 106 agreement, one hasn't been agreed at this stage. So at the moment, there's no provision to secure the affordable housing proposed and the contributions towards the NHS, education and the recreational disturbance avoidance and mitigation strategy, which are all required to make the development acceptable. So accordingly, although there are benefits in terms of the supply of housing and also the affordable housing, noting the over provision of 4 homes, the application is recommended for refusal with the additional reason for refusal that I referred to earlier. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive presentations, Bradley. Members, you will also have received an email from the agent, Mr. Lee, and 2 comprehensive emails from our planning department, which both address very clearly the points raised by Mr. Lee. So I really hope everyone's had the time to digest those documents.
If you allow me, I think one came out at 12:30 this evening. Unfortunately, I was on the way out. So I think that was one from Mr. Johnson. Read it, please.
I think that might be helpful, actually, Mr. Johnson, if you would. Please, that's okay. Don't wish to put you on the spot.
Well, I think it's because I'm maybe not see it.
I think it'd be quite useful for members if
I
you
think it'd be
did.
useful.
That's fine. It's a bit lengthy.
It's very long.
I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it worth your while coming here, Mr. Johnson, after all.
Right.
Sorry, can I be frantic? Is it really fair to the members that are attending this meeting, because they did have access to Mr. Lee's email, so you're responding to something that nobody in this room is actually really going to know a lot about. So
Members.
It is to members, but we're open and transparent.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. Does
all the residents here and whoever's here can actually know what Mr. What's their name?
Johnston.
I'm calling Michael. Response is regarding. I mean,
I think it is self-explanatory. I think you're correct to raise that, but I think you do explain in your email.
It does respond.
You've read it.
Oh, he has read it then. You have read it, Councillor Luca, then.
Just literally skimmed over it while I'm sitting here. And he read Mr. Lee's, but Mr. Lee's was sent for members. I can't remember what it was yesterday. So yeah, but I think for the benefit,
Oh, let's indulge you, Councillor Luca. Go on, Mr. Johnson.
Okay. Dear members, it is considered necessary to provide members with a response to Mr. Lee's email of the 23rd of July, as in officer's view, and having regard to the record of interactions through email correspondence, it contains inaccuracies and presents a different interpretation from the case officer and manager's experience of the facts. It is correct that the agent sought to agree a PPA for this application. However, the PPA sought was to cover the application post, this is after submission of the application only, as the agent advised that, and in parentheses, due to a number of time constraints and the information garnered through the last application, would like to progress straight to the planning application rather than entering into pre-application advice. At this point, officers would like to remind members of the importance of pre-application discussion, as set out at pre-application advice on the Council's website and other literature, particularly with major applications, and even more so when there has been previous recent planning history, given the previous scheme in 2023, which was withdrawn by the applicants pending a refusal. Following an initial inquiry about the PPA and the case officer's response, which noted disappointment that pre-application advice was not being sought, given recent history, the agent did not contact the officer again about the PPA for a further 5 weeks, following submission of the application. A PPA was drafted, however, the agent was not keen to include timeframes. I would add that timeframes is one of the most important elements of a PPA, in addition to identifying issues and seeking to resolve them. For the local planning authority, ensuring applications are determined within statutory or agreed extended timescales goes to the heart, in addition to the quality of, decision-making of our performance monitoring by central government. The agent is not correct in saying it had been agreed that the application would at the earliest be presented to members at the October Planning Committee. In fact, the agent did not agree to this timeframe, and in his email to the case officer on the 14th of June, advised that his clients were concerned by the extensive period between submission of the planning application and the proposed committee date, and asked if another officer could deal with the application, as the delay in determination of the application has a real and demonstrable impact upon my client. Due to resourcing issues, the case officer advised that this was not an option and that the application would be determined within the 13-week timeframe. Given the initial intransigence of the applicant's agent on this matter, officers had no recourse but to prepare the report as it stood to enable a timely decision being taken to ensure it did not run out of time. The appeal decision at land north of the Grove, Latchenden, is considered in the committee report and given weight as a material planning consideration. This refers to the report as stated in the letter submitted to members yesterday. As set out in the report, when considering the weight to give to the healer, the Planning Inspectorate has been inconsistent as demonstrated in paragraphs 5.118 to 5.120 of the officer's report. Officers have given limited weight, therefore, to the healer. The agent makes an issue of the committee report referring to and relying on older decisions and references decisions for Whitecap Mushroom Farm, planning reference 160024 out, and Mayflower Nursery, planning application 18008334. Both of these applications are referred to in the report. The agent fails to acknowledge a more recent appeal decision, however, discussed at paragraph 5.1.6 of the report, for the Mayflower Nursery site, which found the site would unduly undermine the council's adopted spatial strategy. That's quoting the words of the inspector. The agent refers to a planning application approved by this committee on Mill Road last year, but does not provide a reference number. It would appear, however, he is referring to application reference 2300079 for a single dwelling immediately adjacent to the settlement boundary and existing dwellings. Importantly, the decision was made at a time when the council did not have a 5-year housing land supply, and so the tilted balance applied to that decision. The agent fails to refer to the 3 subsequent planning applications for new dwellings on Mill Road that were refused last year when the council had a 5-year housing land supply. The refused applications are 2300544 full, 2300805 full, and 2301212 full. On this basis, officers are satisfied that the recommendation is consistent with recent council decisions. As set out by the agent, there are objections on technical grounds. As the applicant sought pre-application advice, the issues in regard to scale, layout, and design would have been highlighted at that stage. However, they chose not to seek such advice. The council has a duty to determine planning applications. In this case, the agent was advised in writing, following submission, that officers did not support the principle of development. As a PPA was not agreed, and given the government's focus on determining applications in a timely manner and the potential ramifications of not doing so for the local planning authority, it is appropriate and right for officers to include reasons for refusal where insufficient information is submitted. The agent refers to other full applications for major developments that have been submitted to the council prior to this application and have not yet been determined. This is irrelevant to the determination of this application. Other applications have had pre-application advice or are being negotiated where the principle of development is considered to be acceptable. Others have been withdrawn. They are not therefore comparable as has been asserted. These are not therefore comparable as has been asserted. It is simply not relevant to this application where there are clear reasons for refusal as set out in the report. The applicant submitted the application and the council is doing its duty as local planning authority in determining the application having regard to the constitution and protocols under which the planning process and committee operate. Should there be agreement to defer the application on the basis of the matters raised by the applicant, and this is having regard to the comments by officers as just read out, this would be unprecedented, a governance risk, and contrary to good, effective and timely planning processes. The applicant has failed to engage in the most appropriate manner, and significant issues have been identified with this application, given the number of refusal reasons and the additional, as stated at the beginning of this committee. These are significant matters and considerably outside of the scope of a deferral for a future committee. And just to point out, where deferrals have been agreed in the past, these are normally for matters of clarification, not the whole-scale amendment of an application, which could include further consultation of statutory consultees, environmental reports, for example, landscape and visual impact assessment, and the negotiation of Section 106 matters. There is no reasonable or legal justification to defer the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think that was a lengthy read, but thank you, Mr. Johnson. So moving forward, we do have some public participation. So I'm going to first invite Mr. Chris Joins up to the table. Thank you. We don't. No, the microphones don't actually work, do they? They're not actually linked to anything. Okay. So you have 2 minutes, Mr. Joins. So whenever you're ready, we'll start the timer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of many hundreds of residents who are opposed to this development. NHS services are oversubscribed at our local schools, which have ludicrously long waiting lists. Naturally, the Southlands have seen huge recent developments, the largest development in Burnham, as many unsold properties. These refute the idea that homes are urgently required in the area. This development is outside the settlement boundaries, unsustainable due to insufficient health services, schools, jobs, green spaces, transport links and footways, thus increasing travel by car. Development is a poor design and not in keeping with the surrounding area and will not improve the standard of living for current or future residents. Developers failed to submit a great deal of important information, thus rendering their integrity questionable at best. The lack of a signed Section 106 agreement is a significant omission that was promised affordable housing may never materialise if permission is granted. Financial contributions to NHS services, education, housing sector are totaling over £500,000, which are not forthcoming. All of these are prerequisites before granting permission. The missing ecology report means no assessment can be made of damage to wildlife habitats, including those of protected species such as furworm, badgers and bats, all regularly seen in the area. Nature has to provide evidence of this to the Council. This report is essential before permission may be considered. The degradation has already occurred, something the developer denied, and they have provided a statement to that effect. HRE is also required by natural evils. Essex Police believe there will be further burden on the threshold of the network to increase numbers of incidents, plus adverse impact on emergency services response times. In reviewing the report, I lost count of the number of situations such as contrary to policy and unsustainable, missing information and recommended refusal were used. The harms caused by this development significantly outweigh the benefits. Therefore, it must be refused permission permanently. Residents can't understand why it's been called in when it contravenes 15 separate policies identified by parish and district councils.
Thank you. Simon, thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So now we have Mr. Lee. Same deal. Do your worst. 2 minutes, whenever you're ready.
I had prepared something to speak. I think based on Mr. Johnson's response, I'm going to prepare a little bit from the hip in response to that. So I apologise if it's not as fluid as you'd hope. A little surprised by I do long response that members got some unfair from all the historically taken that to agents' letters. Nonetheless, I think it's probably best to have a quick summary of some of the emails from the council and myself. So on the 19th of May, the case officer agreed a PPA and stated it's unfortunate that no repair could be done. However, as I think everyone's aware, pre-action not being undertaken for anything that may have an extensive one of these matters. So we adopted a PPA that is over 3 times the price of the pre-act. So that would have covered any fee for the pre-act plus any additional costs that is incurred during the life of the application, which unfortunately isn't done in most instances. It's important to note in relation to the comments in relation to the 16th of the 5th, where the case officer stated it is worth retaining at this stage to avoid any doubt that the principal development remains unacceptable. This was obviously before the assessment of the application happened. On the 26th of the 5th, the case officer agreed to proceed with the amendment to the PPA. On the 29th of the 5th, I sent an amended PPA to the case officer. On the 7th of June, I was confirmed by the case officer that she was going to be away from August and September, and it was requested an EOT until the 23rd of October, so the application could go to committee in October. That is where we responded, asking if different case officers could pick up the application. At no stage did we say we were not willing to enter into a PPA, and subsequently, even on the 17th of June, the case officer confirmed I discussed it with Michael and advised that we will proceed without a PPA. As you can see, that was a very quick turnaround.
And that's your time, Mr. Lee. Thank you very much. Okay, members. You with us? I just want to say, before I go to members, having read all the information comprehensively, having heard presentations, I also like the objector and the amount of policies that are not met, the design issues. I am also, as our objector, struggling to understand why this has been called in. So I'm going to go straight to you, Councillor Luca, to explain. Councillor Fitzek next.
So, I mean, I'll give one every wish. So, yeah, so let's look at the process. So, processes for the benefit of Mr. Joyce. And we were alerted to the planning application, and then we look at that. They will consider whether or not to put it in. Now, at the moment, on around about the time that this application was presented to the council, there were over 1,100 people on the housing waiting list. There were over 95 people in bed and breakfast, temporary accommodation. And also, the last time affordable property became available in Mayland, there were over 140 applicants for that property. So there were 140, we don't know if it's individuals or families, desperate for affordable social housing. Now, anybody that sits on this committee will know that I am a champion of affordable social housing, and we do not deliver enough in this district. These aren't my words, they aren't the words of the planning officers, these are the words of the planning inspector who dealt with the application recently at Latchenden, when he said we do under-provide. So it was on that basis, bearing in mind this application was for more than the required amount of affordable housing, that I asked for it to come to the committee so people could fully understand the social implications of where we are with the need for affordable and social housing, and that we take that properly into consideration in relation to the costs. So if you're just, I hope that answers the question. There is another question, well, not so much a question, but a statement that I'll make, which is where there's a slight flaw in the system, whereby the case officer with all things contacted me about this and what have you, and informed me that the council was minded to refuse this on grounds of sustainability and design. So it was on that basis that I let that come, because sustainability, for a variety of reasons, the officers argue and say that it's not sustainable. I think it's worth mentioning that I think it was at 5.1.6 in the report. The white cap application, I read the review, and it was actually refused on something about sustainability. And we know that sustainability is a huge issue. I mean, it's ironic, Chairman, that Brookfield Park is further away from the service in Burnham than this proposed development. It's over 2 kilometres. But that just shows you what the mixed mesh it is with sustainability.
Sorry, can I just interrupt
Yeah,
you? I
of course.
might be wrong, but was Brookfield Park not part of the local development
Yes,
plan?
it is. But what happened with Brookfield Park was, and I'm sure, remember, if you Chairman, if you allow me to jog your memory, Brookfield Park, to make it sustainable, was required to deliver a shop. And then it came back to this committee asking for the shop to be basically turned into a house. It was never built. So what we actually did, we took away the sustainability credentials of that. There was no argument as to whether it's sustainable or not. And I think the officers quite rightly speak to the applicants' applications in Mill Road. And again, some of those which have been refused, they tend to be refused on the second boundary rather than sustainability. But we know that's a moot point, and we've had several conversations about this at various levels about what's sustainable and what's not sustainable. I think the officers mentioned the call for sites, and Mr. Johnson will remember that we were at the public inquiry or appeal at Latchington, and there was much discussion about how much weight to add to the comments from the policy team regarding sustainability. Now, they clearly said the sites available. We know, I'm just going to accept that that's a very high level of assessment. Yeah, so we're part of that. But members should be minded that the appeal inspector, who, strangely enough, dealt with Tinker's Hole, where we were awarded costs against us of £40 million. He dealt with a much smaller application in Rectory Road and Latchington. Members might know that it's full of potholes. And he had added an enormous amount of weight to the call for sites. So you can see how members, what different position members are. But going back, and it's very easy to talk about whether 6.3 years is sufficient, whether we've got enough, whether it's a higher number, whether we can go higher. And one thing's for sure, we are going to have a lot of developments in this area following the general election. We won't have to fight them off. Someone said to me the other day, where they all go? He said, there's 121 places, and that, I believe, is 121 constituencies. But, to get back to planning.
Can we please? I'm mindful of the time, Councillor.
We all are. But, Chairman, I brought this in on the go without knowing what you were alluding to. I think we have a difference of opinion of sustainability, so we're part of that, and I'm happy to use that argument right forward. I will say that if this does go to appeal, I'm more than happy to attend you. So we're part of that to one side, but when it comes to design, I think it's irrefutable. Irrefutable what the officers have said. I can remember sitting in an application when we were considering 1,200 houses, strategic development, and it was turned down because I think 3 properties didn't meet the garden design code. So we've got exactly the same position here. There's certainly more to this than, I was expecting you to come forward, not having had the benefit, I wouldn't expect it on a civil report, saying that, design would be right or something like that, but this is more. So, Chairman, I'm afraid, whilst we can argue about sustainability forever, and I've said I've got to have to part of that, we should be mindful of the other reasons, but we should also be mindful that we cannot, under the local development plan, we are not delivering affordable social housing. I'm not saying this is the right location, but we are not delivering it. And I'm afraid, because of the way the pennies add up, we are not going to get prime sites in the middle of villages to deliver affordable social housing. So, I think the reason we're refusing at number 2, I don't think has been met by the application. But it is sad. It's a missed opportunity to much needed affordable solution. So that is, hopefully that answers the question about why it was called in. Unfortunately, Chairman, we don't get this report at that stage. We tend to get it about 10 days before. I'm grateful for the way the officer engaged with me, and but I really don't think condition number 2, condition number 2 is totally and absolutely right. So I'll give way now to Councillor.
Thank you very much. And whilst I applaud your commitment to affordable housing, as I am committed to affordable housing, I think it's rather sad that you don't think that the affordable housing occupants deserve properties that meet the required amenity, parking, etc. So,
I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
So thank you, Councillor Figler, and I will give way to, no I won't, I will go to Councillor Fittock, thank you.
A couple of questions for the officer, one actually in particular. Let's give 30 dpa of about 30 hectares. Is that high or low? That's quite high to me, in your experience.
It's 30 dpa gross on this site, so it is including all of the sites. So given an edge of settlement location, it's reasonably high. But given the surrounding development, it's not overly high. Sorry, that's a bit of a waffly question. It's not overly high, given that it takes into account all of the public open space and the surrounding areas, that the net density would be higher than that.
I think Councillor Duke's explained his reason for calling it a very noble reason he did. I was at the Latching field, and I first knowledge of all the things we brought a number of times. I think it's fair to say in that report that the inspector tended to agree with the professional opinion of officers that the consent should be granted based upon the report that was issued way back in 2021 by the officer in response to the lack of fibre yards and land supply. That wasn't accepted by members all the time, but that's another matter. And that the decision made by the officers that was overturned by members was to approve the application on public because the due diligence going down. We're using that sort of methodology now. We're in a situation where the officer put forward a number of reasons why the development should be consented to. I have no reason to expect any steps to disagree with the view of the officers because all their reasons to me appear sound. We can talk about the benefits of affordable housing and whether we need them or don't need them. The numbers don't really mean it. Yes, we have got a list of 1,200 housing, but when you read the local housing needs 2021, it's very clear. Many people on that list are people that aspire to own a house that don't need it. The actual needing is more like around 250 to 300. So we're not trying to build thousands of houses that we need. We have got a significant supply coming forward on strategic side. We have 800 in totality. And the reason we have that is because our plan was started in 2014. It wasn't really until 2018. The strategic site started to build out, and now we're seeing it all build out as I come third. Obviously, everybody's struggling. You know the problems. People can't afford their houses. They can't keep the rent out because they're higher than the value of the wages for them. So we're not coming up building and what they want to do. So so I'll be honest. I think there are overwhelming reasons why we should support the officer representation. I would propose that we do it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'm going to go to, thank you very much, Councillor Fittock. Councillor Hayward, please.
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, I'm the board member for Mayland.
Should have gone to you first, I do apologise.
Councillor Fittock's thing on density, actually, 30 houses per hectare is very high for Mayland because we are in the process as parish council of doing our neighbourhood plan, and we are an average of 20 houses per hectare over the whole lot, so it is very high. So it's very overdeveloped at the site there. You're quite right with the layout, the amount of car parking spaces, it is all completely, it needs less houses, it needs to be spread out a little bit more, so it is very well overdeveloped. It's only just a couple of points, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing of where we've come from on here. The road, Steeple Road, I don't agree with West Kent Council on the fact that Steeple Road is safe. You have one road, Mill Road, which is a private road, which comes out onto Steeple Road. And then you're going to put another road into this one, which is only going to be a matter of metres up from where the Mill Road, you've got two roads coming out onto the 40-mile-an-hour limit, which in turn goes not far up into a 60-mile-an-hour limit road, going out in towards Steeple. So if there's no roundabout there, it shouldn't happen. It's just waiting, it's a disaster waiting to happen. It is the worst people road for accidents right the way along. So I'm not in agreement with this. It's down to council on that. And I'm going to go back to the distance from shops. We've got garage on Shop Road, and to get to the garage, direct to the garage, is an unmade road. And not an unmade road, and unmade, no pavements. There's one section you have to go around the houses to get to it. Direct routes to the shop. To the school, there's pavements, and so there is to the shop. But if you're going on this 20 minutes to take to the shops, that is possibly, and I would imagine, taking the footpath across a field to do the 20 minutes, which is a footpath. It's not a made up pavement. This is going across the stile one end, stile the other end. Older people who go on that side, they're not going to be able to do that. So it's not actually walkable to the shops. 20 minutes to the school, all right, again, on a busy road to start off with. So I think when we keep saying all about this distances, the things, I think we are going the direct route. The direct route is not a usable route by a lot of people, you know, so it's not sustainable. So really, that's really my main thing. And I say nearest garage, and it only sells the basics down there. They need, if they're going to do a development there, it's got to have a shop on board or something nearby, because we're not actually looking after the people there. They've all got to come out in the cars onto that busy road. So that's really my main points. I'd like to say, knowing the village a little bit more than most of you do.
Thank you very much. Members, I think, unless anybody else wants to speak, I think we have a proposal and that's been seconded, which is to support the officer's recommendation to refuse. I'll second that. Oh yeah, just before we go there, the reasons of high density that we weren't aware of until you were explained how Mayland is, and overdevelopment. Members, would we want to add those as more reasons for refusal, Councillor Stamp?
Can I ask for officers' advice? Because I think there are pretty strong recommendations for refusal.
And we don't want to over-egg the pudding, do we?
I don't see the need to put that, because we all know that they most probably could be contested if it did happen to go to appeal or whatever. I'd take Mr Johnson and Mr Bradley's advice on that, really. I think the reason for refusal is substantive, and I don't think we need to add.
Which one of you would like to?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, officers feel that it can be added, but I suppose again, here in the debate, when we're considering layout and all the other matters, yeah, which means that the site is probably too congested, the poor layout for what's been proposed, yeah, it's almost implicit that there's a density issue in there. So I suppose we could probably just go along with it as it is. If there were an appeal to this, then obviously there would be an expansion of the reasoning behind it, which would include density.
Thank you very much. Are we happy with that? Super. So I will go around. So just to be clear, the recommendation is that we support the officer's recommendation to refuse. Councillor Brown. Sorry.
One thing, there was the additional reason for refusal.
Yes. So the reasons for refusal would include the additional drainage reason for refusal.
Yeah.
And the officers'
yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
Put that word in it, or presentation.
Yeah, that was in the presentation. Super. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'll go with the officers for.
That's for Councillor Fluker.
For.
Oh, that's unanimous in favour of the officer's recommendation to refuse. Members and officers, thank you very, very much, and members of the public. Before we all leave, item 6, any other item of business that Chairperson urgent, only to say, as Councillor Fluker mentioned, of course, we have a new government now. So the system is going to change, I dare say. We've already had rumblings about more development from Labour and having less control about how much we have and more about the kind of quality and where it is. But members, as long as we do have the system that we have now, and as long as we do have a local development plan, I think it's important that we remember that we have a local development plan and that we try our best. Of course, there will always be occasions when we have to, but I think it's important that we just remind ourselves that we have a local development plan for the time being. Watch this space, see what Labour does.
I think, Chairman, I think the way forward is going to be the Essex Mayor and special plan.
I think you're probably right.
I would talk about any other matters, Chairman. If you think there is any interest in starting this meeting at 7 o'clock.
There might be.
It's
We
not on
can,
the agenda, so you can't debate it.
but we can put that on the agenda. We can put that on. We can put that on the agenda for next time. Councillor Fluker. Councillor Siddle Norman, please, before we all leave. Please do.
In Latin, we have 2 children killed on the road because of the fact that the roads are extremely important in young people. In the last 20 years, we've had 2 children killed died.
Heartbreaking. Thank you very much. So, thank you, members. At 2025, I declare this meeting closed. Yes, go. You go.